It's actually happening. You may not be aware of it, but you're already disappearing, and you didn't even notice. This is the last sign you were meant to receive before the old version of you finally breaks away for good, because something is shifting in your life far faster than your mind can keep up with. Lately, it feels like we've been showing up, doing what we're supposed to do, yet something still feels off. If you've been feeling that too, this message is probably for you. And trust me, the timing is not random, because tomorrow, Mercury makes a major shift that acts like a match striking the edge of everything you're about to outgrow. It's crucial for you to be aware of what's taking place right now. Before freedom arrives, your mind cracks first. This shift won't enter your life with calm or clarity. It begins with a mental earthquake. Thoughts collide, conversations misfire, and you catch yourself forgetting things you never forget. It feels unnerving because the human mind gets shaken loose before it gets rebuilt. And as Mercury edges towards Sagittarius, it's like fire hitting a cluttered attic, forcing everything that never belonged to you to rise to the surface all at once. This is why you may feel internal chaos, moments where you don't recognize your own thoughts, or sense a new voice emerging beneath the noise. It's not confusion. It's evacuation. Old mental patterns are trying to escape because they cannot survive the environment you're stepping into next. And here's the part most people never talk about. The chaos is not the breakdown, it's the permission slip. There's a moment few people recognize until they're standing in it, the point where life finally stops resisting you. It happens quietly, almost suspiciously. One day, everything feels heavy, blocked, stagnant, and the next, situations begin opening on their own. Obstacles move out of the way, and your path clears before you even take the first step. Most people misinterpret this as luck, but it's actually the final signal that the old self is slipping away. Right before an identity dissolves, reality rearranges itself around the person you're becoming. Conversations align effortlessly, decisions feel easier, and opportunities appear at the exact moment you need them. It's the universe shifting its weight, no longer matching who you were, but making space for who you're about to be. After months of trying to move forward without momentum, suddenly momentum finds you, and this time it feels earned. Life stops arguing with you because you've stopped arguing with yourself. As Mercury prepares to enter Sagittarius, this energetic shift becomes even more pronounced. If you felt even the slightest movement in the last few days, doors cracking open, pressure lifting, clarity returning, that isn't random, that's alignment catching up to you. Momentum arrives the second you stop identifying with the version of you that kept slowing you down. And that's exactly where the next phase begins, not with ease, but with a level of inner strength you've never felt before. There's something rare that happens when Mercury steps into Sagittarius. Confidence ignites suddenly. Most people think self-belief grows through progress or external reassurance, but this shift flips the script. Confidence appears before the evidence does. You wake up making decisions you once overthought, speaking with unplanned clarity, trusting yourself without the need to justify or double-check. It feels like a weight lifting off your chest, not because of accomplishment, but because of permission. It's the moment your mind stops negotiating with fear and allows your real voice to lead. That's the new self emerging, stronger, cleaner, bolder, while the old self fades into the background, unable to influence your choices anymore. During this phase, people surprise themselves. They stop asking for validation, stop seeking signs, stop apologizing for their direction. A natural decisiveness rises, not loud, but certain. Confidence isn't built, it's uncovered once doubt gets tired of running your life. And the best part is how effortless it feels. You're no longer pushing. Life responds to who you are, not who you pretended to be. This surge of self-belief becomes the foundation of your next chapter, making what comes ahead feel aligned rather than intimidating. Because once your mind stops fighting you, the rest of your life rises to meet the version of you that's stepping forward. Eventually, you reach a point in your evolution where you no longer have to wrestle with the past, you simply outgrow it. The assumptions that shaped you lose their grip, the fears that once dictated your choices start sounding distant. Habits that felt automatic suddenly feel out of character. This isn't struggle or emotional upheaval, it's quiet irrelevance. The old self doesn't collapse, it just loses authority. You realize you no longer have the energy for battles that once defined you. You stop engaging the same arguments, stop chasing the same validation, stop shrinking yourself just to fit old spaces. Nothing is ripped away, it simply stops belonging to you. Some versions of you don't need to be released, they just need to be outgrown. As Mercury moves towards Sagittarius, this shedding becomes even more natural. Sagittarius doesn't drag your past into resolution, it dissolves everything that isn't expansive. Your mind opens, your perspective widens, and suddenly the person you used to be feels too small for who you're becoming. You don't force yourself to stop caring about what drained you, you simply lose interest. You stop picking up emotional weights that were never yours. You stop replaying stories that no longer match your direction. You stop investing energy in fears that can't follow you into your next chapter. This is identity shedding when it's aligned, gentle, natural, liberating, and it leads directly into something even more powerful, the awakening of desire. There's a specific kind of desire that awakens when Mercury enters Sagittarius. Not emotional, not nostalgic, but directional. It comes from sensing the horizon ahead of you instead of the weight behind you. Something inside you whispers, "I don't know what I'm stepping into yet, but I know I need more than what I've accepted." This desire pushes you forward. You start wanting things that align with where you're going, not where you've been. You feel sparks of expansion, the urge to explore, grow, step into opportunities you once dismissed. Desire becomes powerful the moment it stops asking for permission. Meaning becomes magnetic. You crave depth, honesty, purpose. You feel guided by motivation that is not born from emptiness, but from readiness. Ideas stop being noise and start becoming invitations. Movement feels easier because you're not dragging an outdated identity behind you. This desire becomes your compass, pointing exactly where your evolution wants you next. And then comes the final shift. Your future self begins calling you out. The pressure you feel isn't external, it's coming from the version of you that already exists in the timeline ahead. This shift doesn't arrive gently. It arrives through irritation, through discomfort, through the sudden awareness that certain habits, conversations, or environments now feel too tight to breathe in. As the old self disappears, the future self grows impatient. It pulls you forward by making everything that no longer aligns feel unbearable. The closer you get to a breakthrough, the harder it becomes to tolerate anything that doesn't match who you're becoming. You outgrow people mid-sentence. You outgrow routines you once held on to. You outgrow identities that kept you safe but stagnant. And that's how you know the transformation isn't coming, it has already begun. This isn't punishment, it's pressure from your potential. Growth doesn't begin when you feel inspired, growth begins when staying the same becomes impossible. The irritation you're feeling is not a setback, it's a compass. A signal pointing you toward the version of yourself that Mercury and Sagittarius are about to activate. This shift doesn't just push you toward change, it pushes you toward your long-range mission. Survival is no longer the goal, maintenance is no longer the standard. This is the beginning of expansion, the moment when the version of you that exists 5 years from now reaches backward to pull you into alignment with where you're meant to stand. And the moment you recognize that pull, everything around you begins reorganizing. Your inner world starts demanding honesty. Your outer world begins rejecting compromises. The future doesn't whisper anymore. It knocks, it challenges, it insists. And all of it is happening because you're finally close enough to your destiny for it to reach you. Mercury lights the fire. Sagittarius aims the arrow. This shift isn't about becoming someone new, it's about becoming someone clear. Mercury rules the mind, your thoughts, your words, the way you interpret reality. Sagittarius rules your higher aim, your purpose, your truth, the direction you were designed to grow toward. When Mercury enters Sagittarius, these two energies collide in a way that strips away mental noise and forces alignment between what you think, what you say, and what you are meant to become. This energy isn't gentle. It exposes the gap between your real purpose and the narratives you've repeated just to stay comfortable. The reason your mind feels different right now is because you can't hide from yourself anymore. The excuses that once made sense now feel flimsy. The stories that held you back no longer sound convincing. People stop lying to themselves during this transit, not because they suddenly gain discipline, but because self-deception becomes too exhausting to maintain. Mercury in Sagittarius refuses to hold space for anything that isn't true. Under this influence, communication becomes sharper, clearer, bolder, not to impress anyone, but because clarity becomes a necessity. You begin speaking differently, thinking differently, choosing differently. Your language shifts from survival mode to vision mode. Your words become weapons of clarity. Your thoughts become arrows aimed at meaning. You express desires without shrinking them. You think in long-term possibilities instead of short-term fears. You stand in your truth not because it's easy, but because there is no other direction left to move in. Mercury lights the fire of awareness, and Sagittarius aims that fire straight at your purpose. The disappearing point. There is a stage of transformation that is constantly underestimated because it doesn't arrive with intensity, it arrives with silence. It's the moment when a thought you've repeated for years simply stops appearing. Not because you fought it, healed it, or rewired it, but because it no longer fits the direction your consciousness is moving toward. This is one of the clearest signs that the old self is dissolving. Excuses stop forming, fear loses influence, old narratives fail to take shape. What makes this so powerful is how anticlimactic it feels. One day you reach for an old belief, and it's gone. You try to justify a limitation, and the reasoning won't come. You attempt to replay a mental loop that once defined you, and the mind simply refuses. When the mind outgrows a belief, it doesn't debate it, it abandons it. This is the disappearing point, the moment when outdated logic cannot survive the environment your consciousness has evolved into. Under Mercury in Sagittarius, this becomes even more potent. Sagittarius doesn't negotiate with limitations, it burns them away through perspective. Once that fire touches the mind, self-limiting reasoning collapses under the weight of clarity. Your mind stops creating arguments in favor of staying small because those arguments were never aligned with your trajectory. This isn't suppression, it's liberation disguised as stillness. You're not losing thoughts, you're losing the ones that were holding you back, and once they disappear, they do not return. This isn't a phase, it's an exit. Most spiritual shifts feel like cycles, waves, seasons, resets, but this one does not behave that way. This is not a reset or a new chapter, this is an exit. You are stepping out of an era of your life that you will never return to, not because you're forcing yourself forward, but because what you're leaving behind no longer has anything to offer you. The person you were isn't being improved, they're being replaced by a version of you with a completely different internal map. This shift is permanent in a way that's hard to explain until you feel it. The beliefs that once held you together begin dissolving not out of crisis, but out of irrelevance. The logic that once protected you becomes the same thing limiting you. It's like realizing the shield you've been carrying is the weight slowing your steps. And for the first time, instead of gripping it, you feel a peaceful willingness to set it down. Some beliefs keep you alive, others keep you from living. As Mercury moves into Sagittarius, a new belief imprints itself quietly. You don't choose it, it chooses you. It expands your sense of what you're capable of. It makes old fears feel outdated. It shifts your understanding of possibility and direction. Most of all, it gives you a kind of internal permission you've never had. This moment doesn't feel like motivation, it feels like crossing a threshold. You don't look back because nothing behind you matches the person you're becoming. You don't crave the past because it was built for a version of you that no longer exists. This shift is so definitive that returning to your old life doesn't even make sense anymore. You're not entering a phase, you're leaving an era. And the version of you emerging from this shift won't ask whether you're ready. You're already standing in the doorway of your next life. Mercury opens the mouth of truth. Your mind is about to speak what your soul has been screaming for years, and this unfolding is not subtle. Mercury in Sagittarius doesn't offer gentle insights, it delivers raw, unfiltered truth. For most of your life, you've been taught to package your inner world in a way that others can digest, to tone down your intensity, to soften your clarity, to mute perceptions that were sharper than those around you could handle. You swallowed your real thoughts so you wouldn't disrupt the roles you were cast into. You softened your truth so you wouldn't disturb the stability around you. You held yourself back because your voice didn't fit the version of you the past demanded you play. But that suppression has reached its expiration date. Mercury in Sagittarius tears off the polite mask you've worn out of habit, fear, or survival. It exposes every place you've been diluting yourself just to keep the peace. It dismantles the artificial persona built on not wanting to offend, not wanting to be misunderstood, not wanting to be too much. This transit brings the moment where truth becomes unavoidable. The real voice, hidden beneath years of conditioning, finally comes forward, and once it speaks, it cannot be silenced again. Suddenly, the thoughts that once stayed trapped in your throat begin rising to the surface with force. You don't decide to express them, they break through on their own. This transit acts like a pressure valve releasing decades of filtered expression. You'll notice yourself saying things you've avoided saying for years, not out of anger, but out of accuracy. You'll feel relief in the honesty, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. And the most surprising part is that the truth won't feel reckless, it will feel necessary. Truth doesn't destroy your life, it destroys the parts of your life built on pretending. People still attached to your former self may find this new version of you uncomfortable. They may not recognize your tone, your perspective, or your clarity. But that is the point. They were never meant to travel with you into this next era. This isn't rebellion and it isn't chaos. This is coherence. For the first time, your thoughts, your instincts, and your deeper knowing move in the same direction. The honesty emerging during this shift isn't performative, it's structural. It rebuilds you from the inside out. It reorganizes your identity around authenticity instead of fear. It teaches you to speak from your center, not from your conditioning. This is the moment you stop betraying yourself through silence. And once this alignment happens, once truth becomes your default instead of your exception, the old version of you cannot return. Because the moment you stop lying to yourself, your entire life begins to reshape itself around the person you were always meant to be. This is the point of no return. If you've been asking for change, this is the universe cashing in your request. Every spiritual shift has moments that feel symbolic, like clues or gentle nudges, but this is not one of them. This is the moment where symbolism ends and reality begins. When Mercury enters Sagittarius, you stand at the threshold between identity and expansion, and the universe stops responding to your words and starts responding to your readiness. This isn't a cycle that will loop back. This is an exit from an entire version of your life, a shift that doesn't offer a return path because you weren't meant to walk backward through a door you have already outgrown. And you can feel the difference. The thoughts you used to lean on don't land the same. The self-doubt that once felt familiar now feels uncomfortable to entertain. Even your old tendencies, hesitation, self-silencing, shrinking your vision feel strangely foreign, like they belong to someone you've already separated from. What's happening isn't confusion, it's detachment from a mindset that cannot coexist with where you're going next. Sagittarius expands everything it touches, and Mercury governs the structure of your thinking. Together, they create a psychological threshold that cannot be uncrossed. This shift doesn't just pull you forward, it invalidates the world you're leaving behind. You start seeing the cracks in the life you used to tolerate. The limitations you once justified stop making sense. The people you leaned on no longer influence your direction. Even your old dreams feel too small compared to the horizons opening inside you. That's why this moment doesn't feel like a routine upgrade. It feels like something in you has quietly decided to stop settling. And once that decision is made, the old life can't hold you anymore. What changes now is not just your mindset, it's the architecture of your reality. You're no longer thinking from the old patterns, no longer motivated by familiar fears, no longer comforted by routines that once felt safe. You're stepping into a new internal ecosystem where purpose becomes the dominant influence. And once purpose takes over, comfort loses its power. Predictability loses its appeal, and familiarity loses its control. What remains is possibility, and for the first time, possibility feels safer than the past ever did. This shift is a reward disguised as a crossroads. It's a sign that your evolution has reached a point where the universe is no longer asking you what you want, it's showing you what you're ready for, and that readiness carries responsibility. Not the overwhelming kind, but the empowering kind. If you're still watching, thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed this content and want to see more, consider clicking the subscribe button. Your support is truly appreciated. Feel free to share your experiences or thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, take care and subscribe for more insightful content.